All rights reserved with Yolanda Taylor on Choice.
Good morning, listeners. Welcome to another episode of All Rights Reserved. I'm Yolanda Taylor, the community lawyer and the voice behind this mic. Today, I am excited about the topic today for the community. It is all about small businesses, which can create big legacies from food trucks to business empires. Let's talk about it. I have a special guest today that's going to help me navigate this amazing conversation that I'm excited about. But let's start here. Everybody, sees a food truck, but they don't always see the business behind the truck. Well, my special guest today is Nicole McIntyre. She is a certified franchise executive, a business strategist, and the founder and CEO of Nicole Network, a business development and marketing firm that helps entrepreneurs start, grow, scale, and eventually exit successful businesses, right? With 2 decades of experience working alongside startups, established companies, and franchise brands, Nicole has actually coached entrepreneurs across industries, including food services, retail, wellness, real estate, and professional services. She specializes in helping business owners turn ideas into assets. She builds strong operational systems within her clients' businesses. She helps them with effective marketing strategies, customer retention programs, and scalable business models that create long-term value. Nicole is also the creator of the BAR method, I hope I'm saying that right, a proprietary business growth framework that's focused on strengthening brand awareness, customer acquisition, retention, referrals, and revenue. She also serves as a business counselor for small business centers, where she provides coaching, educational programming, and strategic guidance to entrepreneurs throughout North Carolina. Beyond consulting, Nicole is passionate about strengthening local economies through entrepreneurship. She's the founder of Food Truck Affiliates, serves on her own town's Land and Use Review Board, and she hosts the Micro Business Influencer podcast, where she interviews business owners, industry experts, and community leaders to uncover practical strategies that help entrepreneurs build resilient, profitable businesses. Thank you so much, Nicole, for being here today. So I said a mouthful, right? She has an impressive bio, but I want you, in your own words, to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Yolanda. So yes, I am a franchise executive, and what that means is I can help small businesses, especially solo entrepreneurs, start, build, expand, scale, and exit their brand, whether it's for retirement, franchising, licensing, or just selling it to as a whole system to another organization that will acquire it.
Okay, awesome. And so, I guess, when did this entrepreneurial spirit begin with you?
I'd like to think that this spirit really, I guess the entrepreneurial spirit came to me through my grandmother. She was a pioneer. She came here from El Salvador, and she came here through the seamstress program. She actually helped other women get through the program before she actually came over herself. But once she was here, and she was able to bring her children over. My mother grew up here since she was 7 years old, and my mother went to school to be a secretary, but ended up being an entrepreneur herself. So through my grandmother being a pioneer, a strong female lead in our family, matriarch in a sense, and then my mother being an entrepreneur, I think that is what inspired me, and that is why I do what I do today.
Wow, that's an amazing story about your grandmother, right? It took a lot of courage, grit, resiliency, a vision to do everything that she did. So wow, that's amazing. So let's talk about this. So I know you do a lot of different coaching as far as clients. You have various clients, in the wellness area, as I mentioned in your bio. But let's talk about the food. So why food? What got you started in the food space?
I like to say I've been in the mobile food industry since I was 14 years old.
Oh, wow. Actually,
here out of North Carolina, I worked at the North Carolina State Fairgrounds when I was also a cheerleader in high school.
Oh, wow.
So I just always knew the ins and outs of concessions and mobile food, and I always told myself when I am an adult, I will never work in food because I didn't like grease in my hair and the hard labor, and it just so ended up that my husband and I, out of the several businesses that we started and built, our high-end dessert truck was one of the businesses that really became successful, and we ended up franchising that concept.
So was that your first business?
No, that was not our first business.
Okay.
My first business was more of a side hustle, and it was selling shoes at the Latino flea market off Capitol Boulevard.
I remember that.
Where
I go there, to that big flea market.
Yeah, where the food stores place is right now.
So.
Yeah, the food pantry.
Yes, near the bus station. Yeah, it's across from the food pantry. Yes.
So that was my first business.
Okay.
The shoes were kind of high end for.
What type of shoes? Yeah,
they're a little bit too high end for the audience. But I think that was the first business I dabbled in on my own.
Okay, all right. Well, tell us about this luxury. Is that what you coined it? The dessert bar, this high end dessert bar that was like a food truck.
So we do high-end desserts, chocolate-covered strawberries, chocolate-dipped cheesecakes, and the cheesecakes are actually on a stick. Wow. We consider our dessert an adult indulgence, so it's more of a high-end feel. Our whole brand and our whole culture is, I guess, more catered to maybe weddings, corporate events. We mainly do private events with that brand. Okay.
Mental note, guys. Mental note for something I have coming up. But so I guess, it sounds like, you say since 14, you've kind of been in the food space. So any mistakes that you made early that you would like to share?
Well, entrepreneurship, the whole journey in itself is a fast fail, fast success journey. So if you're not making mistakes in your business journey, then you're doing something wrong. But yeah, I think that I would say, and I do want to take a step back, the name of our food truck is Cocoa Forte. Okay. Cocoa like the cocoa bean. But as far as mistakes, I would say one mistake that we made was not making sure that we were paying ourselves first, or even collecting payment for whatever our business was first before giving the product or supplying the service.
Oh wow, so you did it like on an honor code? Someone would call you and say they wanted a service, you would provide it and then invoice them later? Or?
Well, I'm thinking about several businesses that my husband and I started early on. After we did the shoe booth, we actually had a landscaping business, a commercial landscaping business. And with that business, we would charge after the job was done. I would say that was a mistake. We eventually learned we need to, and we can charge before we even come out for service. So that was one of those things that if we went back, but at the same time, you don't really know some of these things until you're actually moving in that direction of the business.
That's what I was going to say. If you're not making a mistake, you're not learning, you're not involving, you're not creating a better business model for yourself. Even as a lawyer too, sometimes people call me do I pay you before or afterwards? I'm like, you absolutely pay me before. I have an agreement between you and I, and my agreement will hold me responsible for doing the work that you're paying me for. So, they feel secure with that contract. So there's a lot of things too. And, having a contract in place, having a billing system in place, and I love this conversation because I'm a small business owner. I consider myself to be one too, as a small law firm. we all do make mistakes, but we do want to avoid costly mistakes, and you can only do that through learning, right? And it's great that you're here based on your experience, that you can counsel other businesses and you can bring your experience, the mistakes you made, to help them avoid maybe costly mistakes. So do you always envision becoming someone who counsels entrepreneurs?
Envision counseling other entrepreneurs? No. But I will say it's not out of my nature. I am the eldest I grew up in a household as the eldest of 7 girls.
Oh, wow.
So I was the second mother in the family in a sense. So I always was that big sister that is always helping the younger sisters with absolutely everything.
Wow.
Hair, hygiene, clothes, going to school, meals, and life as a whole. So it's not necessarily out of my nature. So most people, I think it's kind of, Nicole's doing that, Nicole's helping entrepreneurs. Of course, that's how she is.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because I'm going to say maybe 3 episodes ago, I had Deborah Lobin, who wrote the book around self-care. And we talked about like people who go out their way, overextend themselves and they help people. It's usually because when they were a child, they were targeted by a parent, not in a bad way, but the parents thought that's the one that's my helper, right?
Okay.
So it was just good because I felt like, as being the oldest as well, I had to do some of those things too. So that's good to know. So you find yourself in this space where your natural talents, your natural passion, your natural inclination is to help and to counsel entrepreneurs. So the food truck industry, I really want to talk about this because I will say it has really evolved in North Carolina. I think, just growing up here and, encountering my first food truck, you would think, food truck, I'd rather go to a restaurant. But now people love food trucks. I mean, they're all over the place. I mean, like in Wake Forest, I'm like following food truck industries, and I'm like, when will you be back downtown again?
Yeah.
And the Friday Night on White event and all the festivals we have in the Triangle, we all have our favorite food trucks, don't we, guys? So everyone, though, they may think, looking from the outside, they may think owning a food truck is easy. Is it?
Yeah, owning a food truck is easy if you let it sit in your driveway.
Oh, okay.
Operating a food truck is where the difficulty can come in.
Yeah, because people think, I gotta do is just pop up and just sell something, right? It's not like that. So what does it actually cost in roundabout figures to actually operate a food truck business?
Okay, so there's no one answer to that. If you're thinking about what does it cost to acquire a food truck, you can spend as little as maybe $45,000 or as much as $300,000 or more.
Wow.
The difference is going to be the mobile unit, the upfitting, how brand new or used the equipment is. If you have AC, your hood vent, all the labor and branding that goes that's involved with upfitting your mobile unit. So it's a big range. And even when it comes to what kind of profit can you turn over, it depends on your cuisine. It's because you could sell a barbecue burger at the same price as someone selling 3 tacos, but your profit margins are going to be different because your labor cost is going to be different.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. What type of licenses, though, do people need? Is that part of that whole cost, the operational cost, licenses, but having permission to be in the location you want to be in? Yeah,
so the licensing is part of your startup expenses, and you're going to have depending on the way that you prepare your foods, either you're going to be under your county department or you're going to be under your North Carolina Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
So those are 2 different permits in a sense. And then aside from that, you want to get your food handler's permit or your ServSafe permit so you know how to safely prepare and serve the food that you're going to serve to the community. And aside from permitting and permissions, you're also going to want to make sure you get your sales and use tax, not just from the state Department of Revenue, but also clarifying with your county revenue department if there's a sales or a beverage tax that you need to obtain as well.
And these are all things, including this ServSafe certification. You counsel entrepreneurs on and startup businesses on. You cover all of these areas, correct?
Well, there are actually programs and online platforms where you can go through the curriculum and get your certification. I don't necessarily have to teach it. I'm not an instructor, but I can tell you where to go.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like you can coach and guide and tell them like these are the steps that you need to take.
I will say one thing that I do a little differently, or I take a step further when I do coaching or counseling my mobile food business owners is, you can go through those food and nutrition classes and culinary courses, but they're not necessarily going to go into detail on how you need to prepare your SOPs or your documentation for trainings and such.
Okay, sounds good. And so, is there a thing called commissary kitchens? Is that the same as ghost kitchens, or is that different?
It's the same. It's commissary kitchen.
Commissary,
yes,
okay.
It's commissary kitchen, ghost kitchen. It's the same thing. It just means it's an approved commercial kitchen that a business is able to do prep work out of.
Yeah, because I know there's one in Wake Forest. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's off Capitol Boulevard, and it's a commercial kitchen, and several businesses there. And it seems to be very popular, right? You can't eat in because it's not set up for that. It's set in for pickup.
Yeah.
So, how difficult is staffing, I guess, if you're having a food truck business? I usually just maybe roughly assume that it's like a family business. Are they normally family businesses, or can they, I'm assuming, they're not always the same, so there could be some staffing concerns or opportunities as well, right?
Yeah, same. Either concerns or opportunities, challenges, just like any other business. Mobile food is a bootstrap industry, so you're going to be the owner and the operator, typically in the beginning, unless you're buying into an existing system with existing staff. But staffing can always be a concern, so you always want to, if you are someone thinking about getting into the mobile food industry and you're planning your menu, you want to make sure that you can prep, cook, serve. You have some sort of workflow that can take the minimum amount of people that you think and that you can employ, whether if it's just you on the mobile unit or you and another team member, whether it's your spouse, children. I will say our children, all the kids in our family actually have been on our food trucks. Our food truck wasn't the only brand in our family, so all of our kids have been at the service window serving and taking orders. So it's not unknown for your family members to also assist if they are second hands, or your neighbors' kids. But staffing can be a concern, it can be a challenge, but oftentimes, especially in the local industry, the local area, the food truck entrepreneurs, we do communicate with one another. We'll always find someone willing to assist, whether if it's another food truck owner or someone that's working part-time for another food truck and can help you on your mobile unit as well.
Wow, what a great skill set or experience to share with a child, right? Teaching them, like about running a business. Maybe they will realize I could start my own business. I can still go to school, I can still get the education, but having in the back of their minds that I can do this. Just like how your grandma, had that experience and apparently shared it with her descendants, her grandchild, and maybe other members of your family. So that's important. And I also hear from my CPA that there's some ways that kids work for you. There's some tax benefits there too, and things that you can do as far as making your kid like a W-2 maybe, or I'm not a CPA, so I'm not giving tax advice, but I'm saying my CPA has told me what I can do as far as with my daughters, who also help me out every now and then at my law firm. So we mentioned earlier that, you mentioned that your first business was a side hustle. So, is a food truck really a side hustle, or is it a serious business?
It's both. Typically, I like to recommend that you start it, unless you're purchasing into an existing system, you should start your mobile food concept as a side hustle because you want to test the waters. If you ever think about someone investing in a hobby, like back in the day, we had the Beanie Babies, right? We never really invested in Beanie Babies, but I saw our neighbors invest in Beanie Babies. So think about it. Think about it on those terms. Are you going to fully invest in the industry because you watched a ton of videos, you were able to do like a profit and loss mock-up, and you know that this business is going to be viable, so you're just going to jump both feet in and invest and turn it into a business? No, you may not want to do all that. You want to test the water. So start it as a side hustle first. And then once you constantly get your milestones of your proof of concept in a small way, then you want to do your business plan if you're going to be serious about it.
Okay, that sounds really good. So you're leading me right to my next thought, or the next segment of this topic, which is turning a hobby into income, because I'm sure there are a lot of listeners out there who love to cook, or I know it's not your skill set and what you do is not just limited to food, but let's talk about food, and maybe we can also talk about some other industries too. If you want to give me a scenario around some other industry you think is related to what we're talking about, let's do that. But I know a lot of people love to cook. I know when I go on Instagram, there are people that are juicing. There are people, there are micro businesses all over social media, right? People who have lost weight, who now, if you comment, you get a link to their workout series. People who cook, who have recipes, even people who mix great cocktails.
Yeah.
You comment below, you get a link to their recipes. So I love the way people are monetizing social media. But turning a hobby to income, I think, is important, because a lot of people want to live their passion. They want their hobbies to become their jobs. So how do you know when friends are saying something like, you should sell this, girl? How do you know whether or not that means you actually have a business? And I think you kind of answer that about the proof of concept. But there's a lot of people who can do hair real well.
Yeah.
So what do you say about that?
Well, if we're talking about the mobile food industry specifically, I like to recommend that you do a test kitchen. So let's say that you make the bomb diggity veggie egg rolls, okay? So you make awesome veggie egg rolls and you invite your girls over, and they're like, you need to sell these egg rolls. You need to go to the flea market and sell your egg rolls. Well, first, pump your brakes before going to the flea market and selling your egg rolls. You want to figure out, okay, what is my cost going to be? And the concept I tried to share is do a test kitchen. And that's when you're figuring out, well, how much product do I actually purchase? And when I purchase that product, what am I spending? What is my cost down to the ounce? How many servings does this bring? And how much labor does it actually take? What is the preparation really like? And when I'm in the kitchen, what are all of the supplies and equipment that I actually need? And then you start to develop some sort of workflow and get an idea of what the true immediate cost is going to be, if this is something you're going to do weekly, monthly, and you can kind of connect it to what kind of lifestyle do you want to have. And from there, you'll figure out, well, how much do I really want to charge? Or will I be able to charge per veggie egg roll? And how many veggie egg rolls will come in a serving or a package? But you can't really sell anything until you are permitted. So after you do your test kitchen, then you want to take it a step further and figuring out your actual overhead expenses. So your permits, your LLC, and once you register your LLC, you have to do your annual reporting every single year. That's another overhead expense. Your insurance, you want to open a bank account. You want to acquire a commissary kitchen, because if you're chopping veggies, then you're likely going to be under the county health department. So it's more than just saying you should sell these, go for it, to actually understanding what my cost is going to be, what the labor looks like, how does it align with my lifestyle, what is my output energy-wise, financial-wise, and what is the return, financially, and how happy am I going to be when I'm making other people happy with these bomb diggity veggie egg rolls.
Exactly, and the risk, like you were saying, having insurance, because like what do you call it? Food sickness, and people claiming, I ate your egg rolls, your bomb diggity egg rolls were not the bomb diggity egg rolls because I was at home in the bathroom all day, that type of thing. So, and I'm just thinking too, even as a lawyer, law school teaches you how to practice law. It doesn't teach you how to run a business. So even before I took the leap of faith and started my own practice, I got like a counselor, I got like a business consultant that I worked with for almost 2 years because I was so nervous, just making sure I understood, the business aspect, and I had a plan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's something that you do as well, right? You can counsel and coach people. I mean, you're doing it here, listeners. If you can hear, all the important advice that she's given, that it's not just you should sell this. Yeah, maybe you should, but before you go out there to do it, here are the steps that you need to consider, right? Because it sounds like you could make a mistake. So I don't know if there are any specific mistakes that you can think of that a new food entrepreneur could make.
Well, I will say, let's see. There's always room for mistakes. I will say that, if you really wanted to make some sort of money as a side hustle, selling your egg rolls, you don't want to sell to the public. You would want to sell to friends and family. Maybe you would ask your sister if she's going to have a birthday party, if you can cater for her birthday party, and then she can pay you for the food cost or maybe some of your time, but you don't really want to go into selling. So that's where one mistake can happen. So you think you've done all this work and you know that you can sell your egg rolls, people love it, you start posting on Facebook, buy my egg rolls, pick up your order this Friday at my house. That's a big mistake. You can't sell to the public, but you can sell to your friends and your trusted family members that are willing to pay for you to, in a sense, quote unquote, cater for them personally.
Yeah, and that's a safe space too.
Right.
Then, your family members are forgiven if they get a little sick. I mean, they may not be litigious, as a lawyer, I'm always thinking about that. But, that's good advice. You guys hear that. Start first. Start your test kitchen of sorts with your family and very close trusted friends. But once you have done all that and then you've done everything you need to do as far as getting your license, your permits, you thought through your operating costs, you have maybe some seed money, you're ready to go. Like, what are some great locations for someone just starting out? I'm just thinking about food markets. You mentioned catering. What about pop-ups? How hard is it to do a pop-up?
Well, it's easy. I will say, because the mobile food industry has absolutely evolved since we began. So we started I would say we started as a pop-up tent back in 2011. And there were only a few food trucks in the area at the time, and they were kind of mostly operating between Wake County and Durham County. But the industry locally has expanded and evolved since then. So there's room for anyone and everyone to be profitable or successful. So there's no short of community events that are happening, whether if it's Wendell, Nightdale, Carborough, Pittsboro, Garner, every township is hosting some sort of festival, and that's an opportunity for you to apply or register to be a vendor, whether you're a pop-up tent vendor or a push cart vendor in the beginning, just to try your concept after, to figuring out who your audience is, or testing the audience that you believe is going to purchase your product. And of course, this is after you've gotten your permits and such. So there's no short of events. A typical food truck will either find a permanent location, whether it's at a gas station or at a parking lot somewhere. Other food truck owners do shifts, or I would say brands will do shifts, meaning we'll go to commercial properties and where they'll actually have like an assigned calendar on rotations, and food trucks will go out to do lunch shifts, even breakfast shifts, and then maybe in the evenings we'll go to a residential property, and we'll do shifts at, with residents as they're coming home. And then there's so many venues here. We have wine venues, we have in the Triangle area, we have breweries, we have other locations that also host food truck owners on a rotating basis. So there's no short of opportunities in the area that already have an audience, and a ton of different flea markets and vendor market pop-ups as well that will host your mobile food concept.
And I was also thinking towns that are looking to bring, I guess, a footprint to the downtown area, like the town of Wake Forest. I mean, it's growing. It's not like this fancy downtown yet, but they have a lot of beer and bars, but they don't have a lot of restaurants downtown. So they really depend heavily, like when they're having events, to have food trucks there, because it's not like there are all these fancy bars like on Glenwood Avenue in Raleigh where you can just pop in and eat. So food trucks. So I think small towns are a good place to get started, because they're thriving to bring people to those areas. And I heard something else that you said, like know your audience. It made me think about my personal business plan, because my business coach was like, know your client. When you walk in a room, you already know who your client is, and so you're not wasting time, over here, because that may not be your client. And I've intentionally, and I serve all people, but I've intentionally decided that my client, or what my main client, is women. Okay. So I have a workbook that I created called A Wise Woman is Clothed in Legacy, because it's about estate planning, protecting your asset. Because I see us as the nurturers, right? We bring the husband on board, right? Because a lot of women have come to my office first, and then their husbands came afterwards. So just know who your client is. It doesn't mean that's your sole client, but that's your main client that will build your business. Because you stated that you were selling high-end shoes at the flea market.
Right, exactly.
So you realize, I may not have been the right, market for it. So location too, like versus a gas station, like what type of clients will you get at a gas station versus, if you were somewhere else, like at a festival or a nice event or at a winery, or, like the Zing, is it called the Zing Yard? That's the Zinc House.
Zinc House.
Yes, like if you're a food truck at the Zinc House, a winery place, right? So you will get different clients depending on what your profit margin, depending on the cost of your food, right? You want to be able to, you want to make sure that those folks, whoever you're targeting, can afford, whatever your cost is too, because that can be.
Or they're willing to pay.
Willing to pay. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Willing to pay, because we come up with some pennies and some coins if it's something we really want, right? So willing to pay, that's a good way to do it. So if someone's listening today has an amazing pound cake recipe, if you do, let me know. What would you tell them to do Monday morning? They're listening to you now. They're getting inspired. They're thinking like, wow, I just need to take that next step. What would you tell them to do Monday morning?
Well, it depends on what they want.
Saturday morning, y'all.
Okay.
What would you tell them to do Monday morning?
It depends on what they want to do with that recipe. Do they want to make the pound cake and sell it themselves? Do they want to sell the recipe to others over and over again? individual people, or do they want to sell it to a bakery company, as a proprietary licensed recipe? So I would say figure out first how will maybe align if you think of the end in mind, if you have the end in mind, think about what the outcome it is that you want. Do you foresee yourself baking every week and selling pound cakes? Do you see yourself supporting creating a recipe book around the pound cakes and selling it to individual audiences? What would that look like if you did that daily or weekly? Or if you're selling your recipe to a bakery as a proprietary licensed recipe, how many bakeries are you going to sell this recipe to, or are you going to wholesale it? So that would be the first thing I'd say. Figure out how you want to align it with your lifestyle, and then do your business plan.
Do your business plan. Thank you so much, Nicole. This is amazing, guys. I hope you're inspired. I hope you're hearing what are some concrete things that you can do. And even though we're talking mostly about food trucks, I know there are other industries that Nicole can contribute value to and can help with, but let's talk about micro businesses. You focus on something I love talking about, which is micro businesses. So can you just define it for us? Give us a working definition of what is a micro business.
A micro business is a solo entrepreneur. It's someone that has an idea from the beginning. They have an idea that they want to pursue. Some people, they just want to start a business. They don't even know what type of business that they want to even be in. But someone that is operating on their own or with a very small team, and they just need to get beyond that first tier of figuring out who their clients are, operating on a smaller level, and they're maybe not quite in consistent revenue yet. So that's the micro business owners what they look like in the early stages, where I really come in and I help them turn their ideas into an asset.
I love the term asset because that's all I do as an estate planning attorney. I love to save assets so we can pass them down to multiple generations as well, which is the wealth building aspect of what I love to do. But why are micro businesses so important? Because sometimes people think, oh wow, if I go to this big business, I'm getting more quality or it's reputable. But can you just show the listeners or explain to the listeners why micro businesses are still so important and how they do provide quality as well?
Yeah, so, micro business owners are your neighbors. They're your coworkers, and they are supporting the economy just as much, maybe a little bit more than you are. And I mean, we're all part of this ecosystem. Micro businesses are especially important because if you think about a concept where if we're still on the topic of mobile food industry, and micro business owners still contribute to the economy and the tax dollars. If we're collecting taxes, and let's say that there are 1,000 food trucks in Wake County, and out of those 1,000 food trucks, every food truck pays $250 a quarter, contribute $250 a quarter towards taxes. So that's $1,000 a year, $250 a quarter. Let me take my calculator out.
Okay.
$1,000 a year, and that's 1,000 food trucks. That's $1 million towards taxes.
Wow.
For the county.
Wow.
Obviously, the county is not collecting $1,250 on that 1% food and beverage tax, but the state is. The state is collecting. But the point is, we're all, as small business owners, micro business owners, no matter how small you are, we're all contributing to the economy in some shape or form. And one aspect is it turns into dollars, and those dollars flow back into our community.
And that's important to support local businesses. We hear a lot about it, but I like the way you broke it down as to why it's your neighbor, it's the person that lives right there. And like, yeah, there are these big franchise, businesses that will pop up like Chili's or whatever, but what about the local, I don't know, all-American food restaurant that's a mom and pop store? And supporting them is important as well. And as always, I have to end a wonderful conversation. I so much love having guests like you and others who have been here to kind of like really talk to listeners, empower them. And I feel like this was an economic empowerment moment. And as always on All Rights Reserved, I like to end with like a call to action type thing. And maybe this is the last question for you, Nicole, and we can talk about this together. When we spend our money, like who we give our money to, that's important, right? So what are your thoughts around like intentionally spending? And as a consumer, we can just have a call of action to like when you're spending your money, these are the things that you should think about.
Okay.
And we all know like how you're treated, things like that.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, you've earned every dollar that comes into your household, right? Yes. And some of us, we spend frivolously, and sometimes we spend intentionally. But when we do have an opportunity to spend intentionally, look at those small businesses that are in your local community.
Yes.
I think that, especially in North Carolina, ever since 2020, most of the consumers are mindful about shopping local. We literally have organizations that remind you every day to shop local, which is important. But if you can also shop intentionally, maybe you're looking a little bit deeper at those local retail or small businesses and learning about who the owners are and what their other missions are within the community, because they don't just, a lot of the small business owners are not just making a profit, they're also contributing to nonprofits and supporting other organizations that support our community as well.
I love that, like looking at the businesses, because they're important to our community, and we need these businesses in order to sustain our very local communities and towns and cities as well, but also looking beyond that to like, do they have a value statement? What's their value? What's their proposition? Like, who do they support? I think that's great, because people often think of voting as the only way to create change, but every dollar we spend is also a decision. We're voting for businesses, we're voting for products and communities every single day. So spending money could be a form of economic voting, and I think people should spend in a way that align with their values. And so I'm going to land the plane on this. And this is going to be a history moment. I always like to do that on All Rights Reserved when I can. Throughout American history, economic pressures has been used as a tool for social change, from the Montgomery bus boycott during the Civil Rights Movement to more recent campaigns encouraging consumers to spend intentionally. And that doesn't mean that you spend exclusively. You spend just based on how that business makes you feel. The idea has always been that where we spend our money reflects what we value. So there are lessons that today's entrepreneurs and consumers can learn from these very movements, right? And I think this ties us in a place where we can finally land the plane. And I want to thank you, Nicole, so much for being here today. Thank you for your expertise. How can people find you if they want to find you and connect with you beyond the show?
Yeah, so my website is nicola-network.com, and I am on LinkedIn as Nicole McIntyre, CFE, which stands for Certified Franchise Executive.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And listeners, when people hear the name Nicole McIntyre 20 years from now, what do you hope they remember? I can ask you. I think, what do you hope they remember?
I hope they remember that I tied some sort of quirkiness into business and spirituality. That's what really drives my passion.
Okay, great. So y'all heard it. I love it. I hope you guys were inspired today. I hope you guys realize that you're empowered with the right to dream, the right to create, and the right to step out in faith and start that business, but you want to do it in the right way. Because Nicole, we often think that legacy is something we leave when we die, but I believe legacy is something we build also while we're living. And that's what you've talked about today. Every recipe, every customer, every employee you mentor, every entrepreneur you help, that's legacy in action. So thank you for helping people build businesses that can outlive them. And thank you for listening today. Thank you for getting up early for our 9 a.m. show. I hope you have an enjoyable rest of your day. And don't go anywhere. Stay right here to 92.1 FM, the People's Choice Section. I'm Yolanda Taylor. See you next week.
All rights reserved with Yolanda Taylor on Choice.